What a bully! Scott Arfield! He's been threatening that recently, and all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. It's Rory now. On the outside, decent.
Barnes! He's got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes! And Burnley leading the derby.
Knocks it quickly, finds Vincent in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell, saved by the keeper.
Burnley won it to the end. That is magnificent. They deserve that.
Only by Paul Patella, off for a hat-trick.
He's got it. Hat-trick for Nathan Teller. Oh, he's on fire at the minute. 3-0 Burnley. It's Nathan Teller's day.
Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby. Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Have a shot.
Oh, the goal. Manuel Benson once more. That is top class. Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarence deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Hello everyone and welcome along to the first ever Turfcast podcast pre-game show of the 2023-24 season with me, Joe Redmond, ahead of, the start of the new season. And of course, unfortunately, we're all buzzing about this new season, but unfortunately, it's Manchester City, the champions of Europe, the champions of England, and of course, treble winners, FA Cup winners. So that excitement does seem to have faded a little bit, I think, with the fan base, which is understandable because we are tired of City, aren't we? Like I was saying to some of the other creators that I was talking to this week, like it's good, and obviously you want to play the best teams, of course you do. But it's just a running joke in Burnley, isn't it? We get beat 5-0 off City. And then the joke was that when we got relegated, at least we don't have to play City this season. Lo and behold, we'll get them in the FA Cup and get stuffed even more. So, yeah, I'm tired of City. So it's a good thing in a way that we're getting this game out of the way, I suppose. But is this a good time to play Man City? Who knows? We do have Amos waiting in the wings from the City Report podcast, and I will bring him in just a second. But, of course, the breaking news in the last hour, of course, I'm recording this Wednesday night. So the breaking news in the last hour is that Sander Berg has officially signed for Burnley, which means he will be eligible, easy for me to say, to play against City on Friday night. I think he slots straight in. I put it out on Twitter personally. With Cullen injured and looking like he will be missing, the first game on Friday, I'd go with Cork and Sander Berg. Some people were saying, nah, I'd play Cork and Brownell. Like, what's the obsession with playing Brownell at that position? I wouldn't have Brownell in that defensive midfield role personally. I'd keep Brownell behind the in the front, so like the three lads behind the main striker. I know some people don't want him there either, but that's where I'd play him. I think it's probably a little bit early for Amdouni to play in that role. And I think Twine will just get bullied off the ball against some of the best midfielders in the world, let's be honest. But I think he plays on Friday night, depending on how his fitness levels is, because I know he's had a couple of injuries over the last couple of seasons. So we'll see on that, but I think he slots straight in, and I think a double pivot role of Cullen and Sander Berg is a decent defensive sort of like midfield role, but even better when it's Cullen and Sander Berg. I love Cork. He's been a great servant to the club, but I think a lot of people would agree with me that he's a little bit past it now. I think he's older than me, is Jack Cork, and that's old for a footballer. So yeah, Sander Berg and Jack Cork in there for me this week. Probably still get beat because it's Man City. But yeah, anyway, like I said, we do have Amos waiting in the wings. Amos waiting in the wings on the City Report podcast. I will bring him in now. There he is. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all good. Ready to get going now. Now it's been a longish summer. Obviously, we've had stuff to celebrate. You've had stuff to celebrate as well.
It's been a great summer. It's been a great summer.
Of the champions, isn't it, at Turf Moor?
I like that. We'll bill it as that. The clash of the champions. But what a season for you guys. Like, don't get me wrong. I had a brilliant year last year. I've said it on the podcast and on other places so many times. Last year was my favourite season ever following Burnley. I know we've achieved more, finishing 7th and things like that, and staying up in the Premier League is obviously a bigger achievement than winning the Championship. But just for the enjoyment and the way we beat teams and the style of football that we played, it was fantastic. It was brilliant, but that obviously is small in comparison to the things that you achieved last season. So talk to me about last season. That must have been something that you'll obviously remember the rest of your life. It must have been absolutely fantastic to witness and live.
I think there's some Manchester United fans who would say finishing 7th is a bigger achievement than winning the league, especially in the last few years. But yeah, I know what you mean. I guess to draw the comparison between City and Burnley in the seasons they had, it just makes so much difference when your football team is playing enjoyable football, and that allows you really to enjoy it even more. Obviously, you welcome Vincent Kompany, who is, well, a treasured icon. You see behind me an Anderlecht scarf. I went over to watch him manage whilst he was over there in Belgium, and obviously, you know, he's a gem for City fans. The statues outside the stadium, you know it, but to have seen another football club get to experience that was quite reassuring, quite nice as a City supporter to know that he is out there in good hands. But yeah, winning the treble, it was almost, it came out of nowhere. Obviously, you don't expect to win the treble, but considering how City were going around January, February time, it didn't look like we'd ever get a trophy that season. It looked like it was going to be one of them campaigns. Arsenal will win the league. FA Cup will go to whoever. We'll get knocked out of the Champions League quite early on. It will be one of those seasons. But lo and behold, Istanbul, June 10th, the unthinkable happened, and how thankful we are that it did.
Yeah, it's one of them seasons that will go down in folklore. And not to bring it up, but people still talk about 1999 now. You know, and I have no affiliation to Manchester United, but I still talk about 1999. So it's going to be one of them things that people will talk about forever. Just looking ahead to the season then for next season, I do like to get your thoughts on how you think City will do, because I look at it and I just think that there's going to be a natural drop-off from what you achieved last season. There's going to be a natural drop-off because your players that have been so up for it, so buzzing when they did it. Are you a little worried that maybe the fact that you achieved so much last season will affect you this season, and your players might not quite have the motivation to do as well?
It's been talk of the summer, to be honest with you. Pretty much as soon as that full-time whistle went in Istanbul and City were crowned European champions, pretty much the next day, there were stories about players who wanted out. Obviously, Gundogan's contract extension. Gundogan's contract was up. He was offered an extension, but decided to move on. The likes of Laporte, Cancelo, Bernardo Silva, Riyad Mahrez, who obviously has moved on. But to be honest, it hasn't really been the big summer of change that was billed. City have had 2 players leave. That will probably go up to about 4. Cancelo and Laporte will head on for pastures new. But Bernardo Silva's still going to be here. Kyle Walker's still going to be here. So for those people who thought that was the last time they're going to see the treble-winning team in action, and what a way to have gone out, it's probably going to be near enough copy and paste the same team on Friday night against Burnley. So there is a fear, I guess, of maybe complacency, of, like you say, that motivation not being there. But the only saving grace, I suppose, is the fact that Pep Guardiola is the manager, and he spoke at length about how to refresh a winning team. You don't do it with the same players. You don't do it with an overhaul of 6-7 new faces in at a time. It is those little tweaks over a gradual period of time. 2 new faces coming in, 2 faces going out. So I think possibly if it was any other manager, there may be more fears. But given he's still at the club and signed an extension last year, I think they've probably been eased somewhat.
Yeah, sorry to bring them up again, but it's obviously the only other club that has been as successful as you have in my lifetime. But Manchester United did that brilliantly, didn't they? They constantly refreshed the squad, and Fergie made massive decisions. And yeah, I can understand what you're saying there and what Pep Guardiola is saying. Arsenal, of course, ran you very close last season. Not close enough. I know you said there January, February, it looked like you might not win anything. I agree with you there. I was always through Arsenal's start. Everyone like, Arsenal are like a better start this year than Liverpool and City did the year they both got like 101 points or whatever. I was like, nah, City will win it. City will win it. City will win it. Then it got to like January, February, March, and I turned for about 2 weeks. I'm like, I think Arsenal are going to do it. And that's when you just went, nah, we're steamrolling Arsenal now. But they've improved. This is my point. I think they've improved massively. Spent a lot of money, though, so they should have done. But I do think your squad, not your starting 11, your squad is slightly weaker. What are your thoughts going into the season? Do you think you're gonna win the Prem? Do you think it's going to be a tighter battle if you do win the Prem? Or do you think Arsenal might just pick you? Or somebody out of nowhere, like Chelsea, for example? Unlikely, admittedly, but, it's happened before.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Last year, Arsenal were on course for a 100-point season. They were certainly on course to win the league until they weren't. And I was rewatching Premier League years actually during this week ahead of the new season, and I couldn't quite believe the drop off from Arsenal and how rapidly it happened, because, like I said, they were absolutely cruising it until one day you wake up and suddenly City are 5 points clear. And I guess that is what Manchester City do, and under Guardiola, that's what they do. They just switch it on in the second half of the season, and suddenly the top of the table. I keep saying at the start of every year, this week I recorded my own pre-season preview, and I go, I guess this is the year when City drop off, because it feels like that's the case every single season. This time last year I was saying the same. The season before that I was saying the same. But it doesn't happen. And when you actually look through the competition at the top of the table, every team's got a flaw. I don't think Manchester United have enough goals in them. I don't think Chelsea have enough good players in them. They've got enough players, but I don't think enough of them are good. Liverpool have no holding midfielder, and we know from previous, pretty much every single trophy that's been won in European football over the last 5 years, you need a good holding midfielder. It's the bedrock of a good team. Arsenal, obviously, they're the main competitors. But until they start producing the results in big matches, the Community Shield, I still hold a doubt over it. It was, a late equaliser and it went to a penalty shootout. So until they get those big scalps, primarily against City in the Premier League, I still hold my doubts. But I think they'll do well. I certainly think they'll be second place, I think, although I keep changing my mind. It changes every week when someone signs a new player and I think, that could be the one, that could be the one. I still think Liverpool could have a good season if they sort the midfield out.
Yeah, I think with Arsenal, I do like them this season. They have got better. I know you just brought in Guardiola, but I think up until this is when I was talking about it more before you brought in that signing. But I was like, City are actually weaker this year. Arsenal are stronger. If Arsenal had a goal scorer, not even someone to Haaland's quality, but just a goal scorer, like Callum Wilson, for example, just somebody like that, I think they'd win the league. But to rely on Havertz to get like 20, 30 goals, it's just not going to happen, is it?
It's not.
He couldn't hit a cow's arse with a banjo. He's just not. He's not good enough in front of goal. It is Havertz. I do like Arsenal this year, and I think when I did a prediction recently, I did predict Arsenal to win the league, but I'm kind of doing it to be a little bit like, look at me, not predicting Man City, like that sort of thing. I think they're a goal scorer away. I do. I think, and it's easy to say if they had a Haaland. I think Burnley would probably win the league if they had Haaland. You know what I mean? I just don't understand why they just don't go out there and buy Wilson or, the lad at Villa whose name I've suddenly forgot off the top of my head.
Ollie Watkins.
It doesn't have to be a world-beating goal. Just someone who can put the ball. I know they've got Jesus, but as you well know, he's injury-prone. But yeah, I think you'll win the league because of that. Even though I've predicted Arsenal, and probably will predict Arsenal again, just on separate videos of like, look at me. I think City do it because of the goal scoring. I just think they're better in all departments.
Do you know, it's a shame for Ivan Toney and for Arsenal that the bans happen, because I think it'd be perfect for them. Just, a 25 goal a season. And I totally agree. Gabriel Jesus was shipped out of City because his goal scoring record was too patchy. Lo and behold, Erling Haaland comes in and scores 52 goals in his first season. And that's why City went on and did what they did last year, especially in the second half of the season, even in the Premier League. I don't think without Haaland, City go on and really give Arsenal a good go at it, because there was just a ruthless sense that had never been there before. And I feel like with Arsenal, it's a little bit like watching City of 2, 3, 4 years ago, where they create so many chances and they'll score loads of goals because they're a really good team, and Saka and Martinelli and Ødegaard are fantastic players. But in those big crunch matches, they just seem to fall short. Every now and again, I do like them. I don't begrudge the success at all. I think they've done a really good job. But again, I agree. They're probably a goal scorer short.
Yeah, better Arsenal than Man United and Liverpool, though, right? That's probably why you're saying that.
Always, always.
Moving on, obviously, it'd be remiss of me if we don't talk about Vincent Kompany, a legend at 2 clubs now. Well, probably more than 2. I'm sure Anderlecht will see him as a legend as well. Obviously, statue outside the Etihad. I actually tried to go and see it when we played you. I've seen it before, obviously. But I actually tried to go and see it and get a picture outside it with my Burnley shirt on and my little lad on my thing. Because I was walking around with my Burnley shirt out, they wouldn't let me in that part. Like, oh, you can't. That's what they own it, mate. So I just want to walk around. I could see Burnley fans in there that I knew, but weren't wearing colours. So I didn't want to do that, but your stewards are too strict, and I couldn't take my bag in as well, annoyingly. But it's what it is. I had to pay about £8 as well to keep it there, but I think it more than that actually. I think it was a tenner. But anyway, we digress. Yeah, obviously he's done very well as a manager. You said you've been kept a close eye on him. You went to Anderlecht to watch him. What are your thoughts on the job that he's done at Burnley? Because I think some people just look at it and think, he spent X amount of money, of course we're going to win the championship. And he's got players in there like Josh Brownhill, Jack Cork, of course we're going to win the championship. But obviously we got rid of Dyche, who plays football in a certain way. Kompany came in and he wanted to play football the exact opposite. And to do that, he had to bring in a lot of players. So he had to get a lot of things right. It could have so easily gone wrong. If he'd have brought in 5, 6, 7 duds, we could have been battling, championship relegation. Obviously, Kompany knows a player when he sees a player. So we shot up and won the league pretty comfortably. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the job he's done at Burnley?
It's funny actually. If you rewind 12 months, I've got a close friend who follows Burnley and covers Burnley, Will Lancaster, and I said to him,
friend of the podcast.
Indeed, and a friend of mine as well. But he said he was asking me about Vincent Kompany and what to expect. What I think Burnley will do. And more to the sense that this time last year, Burnley had about 4 players. They didn't have a shirt sponsor, and it looked as if they're going to sort of nosedive into financial crisis. I said I would be surprised if they finished inside the playoffs, or worse to that effect. It would be a good season if Burnley finished inside the playoffs. And then obviously first game of the season away at Huddersfield, they break the record for, was it the most possession or something in a game, and from that point on, it was like, oh bloody hell, this is going to be a really good season. And probably by February time, the league was done and dusted. Bar a few blips, I think there was a Sheffield United defeat in there, head scratching. But that's going to happen when you implement a new style. And it was, I went to Turf Moor to watch him. I think it was an FA Cup replay against Ipswich Town or something like that. And it was fascinating because obviously at Turf Moor, your listeners will know, you're so close to the pitch and you could hear him barking out orders. And bless him, there's an old guy behind me, an old fella, and he was like in constant conversation. Not that Vincent Kompany was listening, just saying, "You're telling him the wrong thing. You're telling him the wrong thing." Bless him with his little flat cap on. But I think the fact that he's gone into a club like that, where Sean Dyche is again, speaking of legends, he's heralded in that part of the world and at that football club, to rip up the philosophy overnight, basically, and implement it in the Championship, which is such a notoriously difficult ground. You don't have the pitches of the Etihad, of Old Trafford, of Anfield, etc. You go into places, I nearly said Kenilworth Road, but the Premier League teams will be doing that this season. But you get the point. You go into the grounds where it isn't exactly the same, and you may be being forced to play a different type of way. But he did it, he did it so well. Such an incredible season. So it was really nice to watch, really good to watch, and absolutely buzzing for him. I'm glad he stayed at Burnley this season. Obviously, the Tottenham rumours were so strong, and I was like, don't have your head turned, Vinny. You've got a good thing going there, and he stayed, and it's looking like it's for Burnley and for Vincent Kompany's benefit.
Yeah, definitely. We're buzzing to have kept him. I didn't really feel like he'd leave. I feel like you can look at the examples of Lampard, who I feel left Derby too early. Gerrard, who also, I think, left Rangers too early as well. Probably felt like he'd achieved everything he could achieve, to be fair, at Rangers, but I think he took the Villa job too soon, and that's why he's now managing in the Saudi League and Lampard's out of work. Whereas Vincent, I think he's an intelligent man. I think he knows he's onto a good thing here. I think he knows he can keep Burnley in the Premier League this season, potentially even push for like top 12, and then everyone will give him so many plaudits again when he does that. Do you think for Vincent's career path now then, do you think there's an in-between? Like, do you think he goes from Burnley to somebody like Villa, like a club that's a big club but not like one of the biggest in the country, before he then goes on to manage City? Or do you think he stays at Burnley until Pep leaves, for example, and then maybe takes over from Pep?
It's interesting, and I guess it all depends and it all hinges on what happens to Pep Guardiola, because as things stand, his Guardiola's contract is set to expire in 2025, so the end of what would be next season if we count this season as the one that starts on Friday. So will he be ready to take the City job at that point? Perhaps. I really don't know. There's obviously a possibility that Guardiola extends again and keeps it rolling on a year or two. Personally speaking, if it was to happen in 2025, I feel like City would probably need a stopgap in between their next manager to make sure the drop-off isn't too harsh, because that's going to be natural when you lose Guardiola. But somebody who's established in the European game, who has a roster of senior managerial caps to his name as well. But I also think Vincent Kompany will probably need... you mentioned Villa. I was thinking maybe abroad, something like Ajax, Borussia Dortmund. Obviously, he's got the languages in his back pocket, so that wouldn't be an issue. But just to get that feel of winning top European leagues and playing in the Champions League, not to say you can't take Burnley to Europe. You look at Brighton, you look at Brentford, the seasons they had last year, it is entirely possible. But that medium level club, I guess, is what I'm looking to say in the European landscape. I think that is probably where he should go next. But if Guardiola leaves in 2025 and Vincent Kompany's still at Burnley, I don't think anybody would expect the talk to be anything other than Kompany taking over.
It's interesting what you say there, though, isn't it? Because a lot of people have gone into clubs and the job's been either too big for them. I don't think the City job will be too big for Kompany because how well he knows the club. But like you said, there's a natural drop-off. It's a different sort of example, but when we lost Owen Coyle, it was just so much turmoil and stuff, and then we brought in Brian Laws. It was never going to... I think anybody after him, because we loved Owen so much and then hated him so much because of what he did. I think no one was ever going to work. Again, sorry to mention them, but it's exactly the same thing as when Moyes went into Manchester United after Fergie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was never going to work, no matter who they brought in. So that is interesting. Speaking of his managerial career, though, how high is his ceiling? Because I genuinely believe that this man goes on to win titles across Europe. I think he'll win the English Premier League with City when he's given the chance to. Potentially win something in the Belgian league with Anderlecht if he goes back there, or as you mentioned, Ajax, somewhere like that. And who knows, maybe even manage Belgium at a World Cup. But I genuinely believe from the start that he's had, I might be getting ahead of myself, but the start that he has had in his managerial career, that he will go on to be one of the not greatest managers the game's ever seen. Let's just relax a little, but go on to be thought about it in a similar sort of breath of some really, really great managers and achieve some really, really big things in the game.
Vincent Kompany definitely has the capability to go on and be the best manager of a generation. I think that is clear to see even this early on. You look at his Anderlecht career, he went in and the place was falling apart, and quite literally as well. The facilities were substandard, but off the pitch, the issues they faced in terms of financial crisis. They had the Belgian police knocking on the door at one point in the headquarters office. It isn't remiss to say that they were close to perhaps maybe somewhere down the line going into liquidation. A big club like Anderlecht, they were in absolute freefall, but he stabilised the ship there. He didn't necessarily go on and win a Belgian Pro League title. I think he took them to a couple of cup finals. He had a European campaign in there as well, but he exceeded expectations there. Suffice to say, he's exceeded expectations already with Burnley. And, if I'm to do a Premier League prediction, I reckon it's going to be a comfortable mid-table finish for Burnley. Partly because the quality of the league at the bottom of the table, at least, is pretty dire heading into the new season. But because he is a manager who firstly understands the Premier League, but second of all applies himself in such a way which only really breeds success. You mentioned the names Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, etc. They went into jobs and they didn't have a clear philosophy. Lampard spent, 18 months at Chelsea, 2 years. I wouldn't be able to tell you at all what he was trying to do. When he went back last season, it was even worse. It was like watching a parent manage the grassroots football team. The coaching was so substandard. Obviously, that's not the case with Kompany, and the benefit is also having that rubber stamp seal of approval from Guardiola. How many times have we said, Guardiola's disciples go on and have fantastic careers in management? He is one of those, and I truly expect him to go on, like you say, and win multiple trophies across multiple leagues in Europe.
Yeah, exciting times if you're Vincent Kompany. Definitely, I do agree with that. I think he goes on to achieve a lot as a manager in the game. Anyway, moving on to the actual game itself, if we must, because we've got to talk about that at some point. It's going to be probably a procession. Like I know I do try and be positive, and the last year I was very positive. But back in the Prem now, having to play the European champions on the first night of the season, the team that always dicks us, not even just beats. I think there were once where you beat us 1-0. Every other time it's been like, obviously I think we beat you at that time as well, obviously as well with Boyd, but that was before you were like really good. That when you were just a bit good. So, I'm expecting a defeat, if I'm honest. I do think it'll be a little bit closer than previous seasons. We might nick a goal, maybe something like 3-1. But is there any hope for Burnley? Like, do you think that Burnley could get a result? Like, I know you're going to be confident. Obviously, I'm not expecting you not to be. But City are notoriously slower starters. Like, in the first 6 months, you're not as good as you are in the second 6 months. So could we take a little bit of confidence from that, you think? And maybe nick a draw?
I was going to say exactly that. City start season slow, and they start season slow on purpose. It's something that Pep Guardiola has banged on about. The fact that if you look at City's pre-season schedule, Community Shield including, they've played 4 matches so far since returning. Usually last season, including the Community Shield, it was only 3, and one of those, half of the game was rained off. So they purposefully have minimal amount of football in their legs heading into the new season, because they know when it comes to March, April, May, they can then go on and kick on and win the trophies. So I think under the lights, cliched, but it matters, especially at Turf Moor. First game of the season. Obviously, Burnley's second game of the season was postponed against Luton. So this is as good a free hit you're ever going to have for a first game of the season. Burnley are not expected to win the match, which lends into their hands perfectly, because they've got a good week and a half in between the matches. This is essentially a pre-season friendly for Burnley if you expect them to lose. So I think there's a real possibility that they could catch City sleeping. There's a Super Cup game for City on the Wednesday night in Athens against Sevilla, so that's something in the back of Guardiola's mind. Newcastle at home is City's next game after that. So I don't think it's out of the question that Burnley get a result. I don't think it's out of the question Burnley get a win. So I certainly think there is stuff to play for Burnley.
Interesting. You sound more confident than me from the Burnley side of things. We've got injuries as well. Benson's looking like he's not going to be there. I think the Vincent Kompany press conference is tomorrow, so we'll know more then. Unless it's today and I missed it. I've been out with the family, so apologies if I've got that wrong. Cullen's looking like, I know if Cullen's not going to play. Cullen's not going to play. And just there's that, coupled with the fact that you are very good and you beat us convincingly every single time. Honestly, even if we're playing Arsenal tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Friday, I'd be a lot more confident. It's just because it's you and I'm fed up here. Absolutely fed up of Man City. And it's weird saying that, because there's been like this sort of like mutual sort of like respect now between City and Burnley because of the Kompany thing. But still completely that side of it where I'm still absolutely fed up here as well at the same time. Predictions then for the game. Where would you, put your neck on the line? What sort of score are you going to predict for this one?
I'll probably sound a little bit like Guardiola myself, where he does that thing, the best team in the world, the best opponents we've ever seen, and they go on and win 5-0. But I genuinely don't think it's going to be 5-0. I could see the 3-1 that you said earlier. I could see, if I'm going to do a hot prediction, I could see Burnley taking the lead in the game. The City fight back after that. You always have to say City probably win the game, and that's likely how it's going to happen. But like I said, if come Friday evening it's 1-1, 1-0 to Burnley, 5-0 to City, any result possible. So City win will do, I suppose.
Yeah, fair enough. I can't really knock that prediction. I'm predicting it myself. Like I said, I'm saying 3-1 to City. I do normally like to sort of like then get people's predictions now where they think Burnley will finish in the league. But you've said you think we'll finish mid-table. Just want to expand on that and why you think we'll finish mid-table. I know you said there's a lot of dross down at the bottom. That's part of it. But obviously, I'm sure you've seen, like you said, you saw Burnley play last season. So is that coming to your thinking as well?
Well, I already know Luton, Wolves, and Sheffield United are being relegated anyway, so that's
that's literally done, isn't it? It is done, yeah.
We may as well fast forward to May. But yeah, like you say, obviously, what's really impressed me with Burnley's recruitment this season, and I still think there's a couple of holes, but it's been done. They've recruited players for the playing style, and I think that's really beneficial when you see a team doing that. Brentford spent their first couple of years in the Premier League doing the same. Brighton have built their entire brand on doing that, and I think when you have players in there who will know the manager, they may not be the most well-known names in terms of, I'm looking at Luton, for example, today. They've unveiled the signing of Ross Barkley, and that's probably a marketing ploy.
Have
not
they?
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
That reaction says everything, doesn't it? But with Burnley, it's smart recruitment. It's really smart recruitment, and I reckon that. I don't think they'll go up and pull trees. I don't think they'll, maybe they might get a scalp here and there, but I think it'll be a comfortable campaign, partly because of the dross at the bottom of the league, but the other hand of it is that Vincent Kompany is a very accomplished manager.
Yep, fair enough. I agree with that. I think I predicted this week that we'll finish between 11th and 14th. So, yeah, I'll take that. I do think we stay up, and I think we stay up comfortable. My only worry is the start of the season, because we've got you probably a defeat. Then we're obviously not going to get a point at the week after because we're meant to be playing Luton, so there's nothing there. Then it's Villa at home. And then is it Spurs at home? Then not long after that, we've got Man United as well. So I think my worry is we're going to start slow and then we're playing catch up. And that's the year we went down. That's why we went down. We started slowly. Then we couldn't, there was so much pressure on us. Then there were players were making mistakes, and we just never really got out of trouble. So that's my worry. But I do think we have the players and the manager to drag us out of it. But just before we go, mate, we're going to wrap it up there. It's been absolutely brilliant chat. It's good to have the pre-game shows back. It's good to chat to fans of the opposite clubs. It's good to meet new people as well. Do you just want to let everybody know where they can find City Report Podcast and how they can digest your content?
Yeah, of course. City Report Pod on all social media. I'm at Amos Murphy _ if you want to digest any more Manchester City news or contest those opinions that I've just said. Come and shout at me why you think Burnley will actually qualify for the Champions League.
Yep, happy days, mate. Well, it's been a pleasure. It's been a good chat. I'm sure I'll speak to you at some point later in the season as well. Good luck for the rest of the season, but of course, after Friday.
Thank you very much.